Yeah, good job.
Oh, that's awesome.
There's one.
Yeah.
You bet you, man. Got him.
Hi everyone, welcome to Harrod Outdoors Videocast, and this is episode 2. I'm Richie Harrod, this is my daughter Michele Harrod, and today we're going to talk about getting women into the outdoors, and particularly we're going to talk about the show that featured Michele, A Buck Worth Waiting For, and you can find that right here on our YouTube channel, and make sure you subscribe so that you get notified whenever we have a new episode. And so again, today we're going to talk about all things about getting women in the outdoors, and we're going to talk about deer hunting. We have several other topics we're going to talk about. I thought it might be worthwhile to start out and kind of have you tell everyone how you got started. How the heck did you
get started?
How did you get started in
Well,
hunting in the outdoors?
Well, my entire family obviously hunts and fishes, and I've been around it since I was really, really little. When I was actually, I think, 12, I took my first hunter safety course with a good friend of ours, which was really fun to do. And then just shortly after that, we went duck hunting for the first time down in Eastern Oregon, and then I just kind of stuck. I love the outdoors and I love being outside, so hunting is a good thing for me.
In the last episode, we talked a lot about getting kids started in the outdoors, and I kind of think whether you're talking about a young girl or a woman who wants to get into the outdoors for the first time, I think some of the things are really the same as what we talked about with getting kids started. Partly it needs to be of interest and fun for them, and the first few experiences need to be good ones, or they need to be something that's very memorable. And you know, Michele kind of talked about some of her first experiences. I remember when she shot that first duck.
Yeah,
I remember
that was really exciting.
Yes,
Yeah.
and she was the only one that shot too. It was legit. I mean,
It was actually mine.
she jumped up and shot, and it went down, and we were all excited for her, and she was too. You know, I think those are the kinds of things that stick with you. It was very, very cold on that day. It was probably, you know, right around 10 degrees or 0. So, you know, we weren't down there a long time, but it was a memorable experience. And I think if you're a young woman wanting to get into the outdoors and do this, that's you know, some of the things you need to think about is, you know, can it be for you? Can it be comfortable? And I think those are some good things to think about. You know, what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's true. The one thing I remember when I was little was hot cocoa was always my motivation.
Yeah, exactly.
You always gotta have a little treat, keep you distracted, and then it's fun once you have that little cozy thing to keep you at comfort. And
so, you know, I think if a young person was trying to get started in, especially hunting, maybe not so much fishing, but that a little bit too, it's the question you might have is, well, I don't really want to kill anything, because let's face it, you know, when we go hunting, we're out to kill something. We're harvesting game, and we're going to bring it back to prepare for our table. So, you know, I mean, what about the killing part for you? Did that ever bother you, think?
Since I grew up around it, for me, it wasn't such a big deal, but I know a lot of people, especially this day and age, don't like that whole fact of killing an animal. It doesn't sound very humane, and it's not very nice in general. The one thing that for me now justifies it is that I'm not spending a bunch of time buying meat at the grocery store, which is the biggest thing for me personally. You have one animal and you can feed yourself for a year for a whole family. So that's a big thing. Instead of hundreds of animals, I just eat the game that we hunt. So that's another big bonus for me.
I think people don't realize, you know, how good and healthy wild game meat is for you. And you know, and I grew up on a ranch, and we had cattle, and the cattle that we raised were very healthy animals as well. But when you start thinking about the kinds of meat that you find in your grocery store, you don't know who handled it. It may be perfectly fine. The beef industry does a great job, but when it really comes down to all kinds of meat that you might find in your market, you're not really sure. And I don't really personally like the fact that so many people handled that meat to my table. So like when Michele and I go hunting, we know exactly who handled that healthy meat that we harvested in the field. And so to me, hunting is really, there's a lot of things about it, but one of the things is, being able to eat that meat.
Yeah.
I mean, so good for you.
And I know everybody's all about the organic and natural, and if you think about it, it is the most organic thing you can get.
Yeah.
They have never touched any pesticides, they've never gone through any processing plants, they've never been fed corn or all these things that could be potentially harmful to humans. And so I think that's really awesome that it's like the most natural thing you could do.
Yeah, so if you think about it that way, taking an animal's life, if you've never done that before and you're contemplating going hunting, that might be challenging, but really it's part of the process. So you become really part of nature.
Yeah.
And for thousands and thousands of years, that's what we did. We harvested our own meat, we collected our own plants, and so nothing is really more natural than doing that. So don't be afraid, I guess, of wanting to get into it. And what you're going to find is there's a lot of challenge to it. It's very rewarding, and obviously it's really good to eat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Always love good steak.
That's what we like. We mentioned that one of the things we wanted to do in this episode was tell a few stories from a buck worth waiting for. And again, you can find that episode here. It's one of the full episodes of the Northwest Outdoorsman. That's one of the television shows that we produce. And it tells a story of Michele hunting for deer, which she's done since she's 12, but having a real struggle getting one.
Throughout the years, hasn't been too lucky, or nothing really went my way until October of 2016.
Yeah, and that's one other thing, I mentioned before about getting a young person or a young woman involved in the outdoors is, having some success. And if you go for years and you don't have any success, you can become discouraged.
Yeah, it gets a little discouraging, but
and not want to, not want to do it.
Yeah, but being outside is worth it as well. So every year I look forward to doing that. Going camping in the woods, not just at a campsite, at a state park. That's awesome, being outside at a real spot in the woods, and spending time hiking around, not just on a trail, which I love to do, but you're actually just wandering through the forest and with really no specific spot to go, just go find your meat.
Yeah, go look for those animals, and again, there's a lot of challenge in that. She shot her first deer when she was 12 years old, and it was kind of a neat hunt. She got a young whitetail buck. We had a friend up in the Methow Valley, which is north of us here, who had some property, and he had a lot of whitetail deer, and he's wanting to manage the numbers, get the numbers of deer down. And so he said, you can come up there, and it was legal for us to shoot any deer.
Yeah, any deer.
Any whitetail deer for sure. And we sat up on the edge of a
hillside, kind of on the
little ravine.
Yeah.
And Michele
scattered across.
Yeah. Shot her first deer. It was kind of small, but
it was still fun.
It was really fun, and it didn't really matter what its size was. It was all about the experience. Again, it's harvesting that animal for the first time, and
the pepperoni.
Hey, I got that. Yeah, and then we turned it into pepperoni,
and
she always liked
thing.
that.
Yeah.
That was Michelle's favorite thing.
Always about the pepperoni.
But we went hunting a few times more, and she got
I got
another doe.
Yeah, I got a doe one time, and then I got
and then you got a three-point
buck,
which we talk about in the show, and you'll see a little bit of that in the show when you watch. We talk about when she gets the 3-point buck, but the doe that she got, we don't have any video for that. Again, that was long enough ago that it was with terrible little cameras, so it wasn't that great. And but after that, she kind of had a dry spell, and she was off to college, and so this whole story about this episode is her kind of persevering over the years to finally get a buck really worth waiting for.
Yeah, and we even tried in college. We tried a whole new land too. Up in the wet side of the mountains, or wet side of the state, which was really different for us. We don't hunt over there a lot, so the weather was really challenging. And over here, there's a lot of really good land to hunt. It's not as
public land.
Yeah, public land, and it's not as dense as it was over there. So that was a really different aspect of it too. So.
Yeah, that's when you hunt on the west side of the Cascades. It's a kind of a different story as compared to here in eastern Washington and Oregon, where we have a lot of open forest landscape, and on the other side it's pretty dense, like she mentioned, and so it makes it more challenging. It's a different way of hunting, and you've got to learn more about game movement and be in those openings and sort of wait. And the way we hunt is we spot and stalk, and we like to cover a lot of ground.
Yeah.
And so that's that's the way that you've
over
grown
there.
up.
Yeah, exactly.
Hunting.
And over there was a little different. You don't do as much of that.
No.
Yeah.
No, you don't do much of that at all.
You can't go bushwhacking off into the woods or anywhere. Just kind of.
No, and so in each one of these places that we hunted, except for when we were in Bellingham, because we stayed at your little apartment where you were in college, but we always set up camp, and I think that's maybe again another one of those experiences about getting young people, especially young women, into the outdoors is, the comfort, the camp, the experience. Don't you like that part?
Mainly the comfort. It's nice being in a place that's going to be warm and dry at the end of the day. If it's all wet and cold, it's nice to have that reward at the end of the night, and just a place to be and not be in the weather is nice.
Yeah, we always use we have a 10 by 12 wall tent, canvas wall tent, and that's what I use a lot for when we rifle hunt, whether we're in Wyoming hunting antelope or if we're deer hunting in this rifle season. And one of the things we really do enjoy doing is putting stuff on our back and heading to the to the high country. But in this case, when we rifle hunt, we like to set up the wall tent. And the wall tent, if you rifle hunt or hunt out of your car, you probably have done that yourself, and it's a great experience. You're kind of setting up the home away from home.
It's like a home base, and then you spend the days going off into new spots and checking them out every day. So. You got your little home there. It's nice.
Our wall tent has a metal conduit frame that then the canvas goes over the top of it, and then on the floor, on the ground, we have an oiled canvas that we put down, and that really kind of helps, the dust, from there being a lot of dust. And then on top of that oiled canvas, we have some rugs, old rugs that we put down, and then we have our cots and some tables, a propane heater that we put in there, one that goes on a 5-gallon bottle, and that makes it really nice. We can keep it, 65 degrees in there even on a very cold day.
It's like a kind of a more rustic version of having a trailer out there.
Yeah, I think so. But you all maybe have different ways of doing it, or if you've never done this before, it's kind of fun to think about, all right, how can I improve my little shanty? And then put. I kind of got to the point where I had rugs everywhere, so you could even take your shoes off and just walk around.
Yeah.
Kind of like being in the house.
Yeah, exactly. That's nice.
And then the cots, of course, and kind of nice having a bed where you can put some insulation down underneath your sleeping bag.
All your stuff and your gear.
All your stuff and your gear can go underneath, and the place to hang things.
Yeah, and it's nice not being directly on the ground as well, because the ground gets cold and you get those drafts from underneath the tent. So it's nice to be elevated a little bit.
Yeah. So one of the things we really enjoy is this, and that's part of that experience. And I think that if you're thinking about getting in this for the first time, then that's one of the things that you're really going to enjoy, I think, is the camp, setting up. And if it's safe to do so in October and you can have a campfire, that adds more to the experience. So one of the things we like to do, what I started doing with Michele when she was young, is I'd make chicken thighs or hamburgers over the open campfire.
And it adds, it just adds it so much flavor, and it's another really great aspect of being able to be outside but still have that coziness of the house and the fire and stuff. Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, and when you prepare for this type of camp, you've got a lot of gear, but you also need to think about, what you're going to take for your meals. And if you can have a fire and you can get yourself an inexpensive grill, you can buy those for not very much money at all that will just set over your fireplace that have small legs, and then you can cook your hamburgers on there. You can cook chicken or other things, just about anything you want to. And the other part of that is then you're not dirtying as many dishes.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to clean as much.
Yeah, we just use paper plates, and that's not much to clean up. Yeah. So the camp, I think, is a lot of fun, and it's part of that experience. And in this show, you'll see us putting up camp in several locations. We had a really nice place at Lake Chelan.
Oh yeah, that was nice.
The one place up the Iniat Valley that we had a camp, and finally when you did get your deer, we were hunting out of home.
Yeah,
but we went all these different places. We've been in the Met Hall before and all around. So it's I think that's part of the experience that you all would like a lot. So What are the kinds of things a young woman would want to make sure they bring to camp that might be different than the guy?
Face wipes, let me tell you that. You will be covered in dirt, and that's like one of my comforts is to be able to get back to the tent and wipe my face off so I'm not like just plastered in dirt. Right. I don't know. I always like to bring my own pillow and my own blanket, just a little bit more of myself there. I always do that.
Just sort of anything that you could bring along that makes you feel more comfortable again, because for me, growing up on a ranch, firefighting all my life, it's just, I don't care if I'm in the dirt.
Yeah.
So
see, girls are a little different.
Girls are a little different.
I can handle it throughout the day, but at nighttime I still like to get the dirt off me before I go to bed.
Yeah, Michelle does great. She doesn't worry about most of that stuff, but I know maybe you were wondering about it, and so those are the kinds of things you do.
That's kind of the only thing that I always make sure that I always have with me. The other stuff, clothes, obviously, extra socks, obviously, stuff like that.
The normal things.
The normal stuff,
right.
yeah. But face wipes, definitely.
Yeah, and maybe you're concerned about, geez, go in the bathroom in the woods or whatever. It's not that big a deal. We just usually take a shovel, create a hole someplace, and then we can, or just individual holes, and cover those up so you're not scattering toilet paper all over the woods. Nobody likes that.
No.
And so, you want to think about those things a little bit. If you're into a wilderness area, then take Ziploc bags, and you can put your toilet paper in those bags. If it's, if they're requiring you to take stuff out, a good way to do that, just in Ziploc bags, or any other item that you're supposed to carry out. If you're not supposed to dig. Some places in a real high ground, you're not supposed to dig, so you just have to know. But for the most part, when you're doing this kind of car camping in a wall tent, then you can bring a lot of things that make you comfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, that camp is a lot of fun, and we really enjoy that. And again, on this hunt, you'll see us put those tents up and enjoying ourselves out in the wood.
And chicken by the fire.
Chicken by the fire, all that kind of stuff. The year that she got her buck was pretty special because it ended up being a big deer.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a really nice buck.
Yeah.
And we talk about, through the course of the episode, all the events leading up to when she finally shoots the buck. But the one thing you're going to see in that show is that you got a little bit of buck fever.
Oh yeah.
So what would you say? What is buck fever?
Never been that nervous in my life.
You're trying to describe to someone what buck fever is.
Buck fever is when you finally see that deer in front of you through your scope, and you actually realize like there's a really big deer in front of your scope, and like, oh my gosh, this is the moment. Yeah. And you do everything you can to not panic, but it's really hard not to panic. Yeah. I panicked a lot. For me,
so
next time...
Your heart rate gets way up.
Yeah, your heart rate gets way up. You start breathing. You're kind of like panting almost. Like you're anxious. You're kind of shaky. My arms shake quite a bit. So I like to use a shooting stick to help with that shaking, because I always do that.
Yep. Maybe we should talk about that a little bit. Yeah. So Maisie's going to come see us again. You know how that goes. And if you watched the first episode, she likes to come see what we're doing. We'll talk about Maisie again one of these days. So buck fever happens to the best of us, and I think the thing about this particular one is she's been around a lot of deer. Yeah. But this was a big buck. This is a really big buck, and you get excited.
Yeah. It's probably the biggest one that I've seen. Actually that close up. I've seen, there's tons around this area, but nothing quite that big.
It was a big buck. And I think, I've had that before. I'm an archery hunter, and when you see something big, or if you're finally getting close to an animal and you're going to make a shot, then your nerves really get you, and you get excited, and you do shake. And I think when you shake and you get rushed, then that's when you have some issues with shooting. And so that's what happened. Your very first shot.
Yeah, it was no good.
She missed. And in the video, you'll see, if you watch closely, the bullet goes like right in front of it, right under his neck. So she shot a little right, and quite a ways right. I think she was, the buck was probably 200. Yeah. About 200 yards.
About 200. Yeah, maybe a little further than that.
So not too bad, or pretty close. But she shot, right quite a ways.
Yeah, quite a bit. So.
And she talked about a shooting stick. Now you have just like a mono stick.
Yes, that one I use just a single stick with a nice little rest on the top for my gun. And I like that a lot. It really helps me stabilize. Once I get really nervous, I start to shake quite a bit. And be able to put some of the weight of my gun on that stick and be able to like really focus down and pull that gun in tight so I stop shaking. It helps me a lot.
Yeah,
like, quite a bit,
for sure.
actually.
And now they're making these same sticks with 3 legs, so they're tripods, and those are really nice. And we recently used one of those, an upcoming show that you're going to see this next year, a muzzleloader hunt. And a buddy of ours had a tripod gun stand for his muzzleloader, which is great because he's got to shoot at close range. And now Michele has one as well. And I think that will help, you know, your nervousness. You can set your rifle down and it gets at the right height really easy for you. And then you can relax a little bit and bear down and make a shot. So, how, you know, one of the things we want to talk about a little bit is how do you combat this whole nervousness?
Bug fever. For me, next year is going to be a whole different story than this past year. For me, it's just making sure that I like breathe deep and like take slow inhales and slow exhales to really calm my body and calm my mental state. That's a huge thing, is honestly just how you breathe. I do a lot of yoga, so that's one thing they talk about is how to calm yourself is breathing. It's all about your breath.
Yeah, when I first started bow hunting, I had this very same problem, so maybe it runs in the family.
Probably.
But you know, I missed a lot at some really close elk when I was first starting bow hunting, and that's what would happen. I would get so excited I wouldn't stay bared down on my knocking point. I would tend to look up, and then I would shoot high, you know. And in this case, that's what she's talking about. You get nervous, and then you don't bear down and make your shot. And what worked for me was pick a spot and just think about shooting. I just started not even looking at antlers,
animals,
not even looking at the animal. I was a hunter, and then I try to teach myself to be the shooter. To be the shooter. And I think that's what if you can think about that for yourself, is you're the hunter, you got yourself close, you finally got into range, now be a shooter. And so if you just can somehow in your mind mentally make that shift to, you know, looking at the spot, thinking about everything you need to do, whether you're hunting with a bow or a rifle, become a shooter. And ultimately you did.
Eventually, after a while.
She had to run down the hill a ways and
took some tries. That's okay.
She got another angle, did hit the deer, and then ran back up to where I was at and had left her stick. So we ended up using my pack.
Your pack actually, which was fine because I kind of was able to get down and calm myself a little bit more when I was seated.
So it worked out fine, and the last shot she made was a great shot, and down it went. And so, but that's when the work begins.
Yeah, that's when you got to go chase it down into the bottom of the draw, start cleaning it.
Yeah. So that's maybe another part for a young person or a young woman getting into this is, okay, so you've become comfortable with harvesting game and the idea that you're going to take some great meat home. But then there's the field dressing part. And, you know, a deer or an elk is a big animal. There's, you know, can potentially be a lot of blood. And if you're kind of squeamish about that, then that's something else you have to think about.
Yeah, exactly. Guts and stuff. We don't clean our animals like that. We don't get into the guts, but that is a messy part, let me tell you. But
it can be.
It can be. We've learned to clean it other ways so you don't get into that where it's not so messy and it's not so gory. Once you get past that first part, then it's fine.
Yeah. What Michele's talking about is we use a no gut method, and just about everywhere that we hunt, that's what we do, regardless of you know, where the animal's located. It's quicker and easier, cleaner in my opinion, just to do it without gutting them. And when you do gut them, it is very messy, and you end up having a lot more weight to try to get out of the woods. So I've just come to that point where I don't do that, and I can get them pretty clean. The only thing you don't get is the rib cage, and I don't really care for, you know, getting home with that dried little strip of meat anyway, and that's not that great.
Yeah, it's
so
not my favorite.
That's about all that you don't get is the meat right off the rib cage. So meeting the requirements of all the state laws, you're still removing all the meat. You're not wasting anything. It's just a matter of how you field dress them. So one of the things that we do is, because we don't gut them, or even if we did, we just carry a pair of
gloves.
rubber gloves with us, and those work great. You just
Yeah.
put them on and
And
helps you clean.
Yeah, it helps clean and to make sure that the animal stays clean as well. You don't want like dirt in it. You don't want your grimy hands all in that. You don't want a bunch of hair in it. So it kind of helps it just overall be a lot cleanlier.
Yeah,
and cleaner.
it's great, and they don't weigh anything, so you can just carry them. The other thing that we do to help keep the meat clean is game bags, which you'll see in that show. There's all different kinds of brands. I like these cotton ones that have a little bit of stretch like this to it. You can reuse them. You can even wash them at least 1 or 2 times more. Sometimes they get a little bit ripped, but that's okay. So these work really well. Keeps in the warmer weather, especially like if you're elk hunting or deer hunting, even in October. Sometimes the weather's it keeps the flies off of them, keeps the yellow jackets off, like you said, dirt.
Yeah, dirt, hair, all the gross stuff, bugs.
So when you quarter them up, you can just put each quarter in a bag, or in the case of a deer, sometimes you can put 2 quarters in a bag and then all your trim meat in another one, and kind of keep it separated.
Yeah, and it's kind of nice too because then it isn't dripping any fluids anywhere else. The bag kind of soaks up that a little bit. So
exactly, it helps do that. And then usually when we get home, one of the things that we do after we get out of the field and we're going to hang the quarters in the shed or in the cooler is we'll replace these. So we'll take those bloody ones off and put those on, wash the ones from the field, and away you go.
It stays clean.
So this works really, really well. If you haven't done that before, it's a good way, and that's kind of how we go about doing it. And in that show, we show a little bit of the time lapse of us cleaning it, doing the quartering and preparing it to pack out of the field. Yeah. So knives, let's talk a little bit about knives that we use. In my pack, I like to carry 3 or 4 knives. That's just kind of my habit of doing that. And I like to have a variety of knives. And I have a couple of Benchmade knives here. Benchmade makes wonderful knives. They're great for using in the field. You have one too, don't you?
Yeah, I think it's in my bag of stuff.
And this one here is a fixed blade. It doesn't fold or anything. It's a straight back blade, and this is a great knife for cutting into the joints and cutting meat along the hips, removing the back strap.
Anything that you need a good grip on.
A good grip on. It works well for skinning as well. So this is kind of what you call straight or flat back.
Didn't we use that or a similar one when we,
Yep, this is the one that we use.
Yeah, I think that's the exact one.
That's the one we use. The other, this is a folding knife, nice lightweight. Again, a Benchmade product, which I really like their knives. These folding knives are great. They're lightweight. This fixed blade's a little heavier, but these are great for, again, skinning, especially if you're caping the deer. Like in this episode, we wanted to save the cape. Now the cape is the part of the hide basically from the back of the legs forward up over the snout, and you want to remove that. That kind of takes some practice if you want to mount it to put it up on the wall. My brother does taxidermy. You'll get a chance to meet Ron in one of these episodes, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about preparing your game animals in the field. That might be a good topic for taxidermy, but it's nice to have a small knife where you can work around the eyes and the ears. And
that blade is nice and thinner than this one too, so
it's a nice thin knife.
Gives you a little bit more range of what you can do.
Yep, and it helps when you're trying not to cut the hide because you have a little more control over it. This is what they call a clip nose. You can see it there, kind of goes down. So these are the kinds of knives we use, and again, I use a couple of them. And then one of the things we do, I mentioned before, is we carry the guided field sharpener made by Worksharp. It has a coarse side and a fine side for your blades. It has a strop here, the leather strop, and it also has the ceramic hone, and you can turn it a little bit here to find a different place. The best part about these is they have the angled guides, and with the angled guides it really helps you get a sharp knife, and you can just touch this up in the field.
Yeah, and we did that I think before we harvested mine. It just made the process a lot smoother too. It was really nice to make sure our knives were nice and sharp.
These are great to have. You keep them in there, and then just every now and then stop and and run it over this ceramic a few times. And again, these have the guides here on this part of it, so you can get that same angle.
Yeah.
These are 20-degree guides, so it works really, really well. Something that's great to have in your pack as you're thinking about harvesting deer.
Yeah.
And then after that, you know, we put the quarters in the bag, you put your hide in the bag, and then you start packing it out.
Try to pack it out. Pack it out, yes.
And in this case, we were able to go downhill to a road, which wasn't too bad.
No, it wasn't that far down. It was a little sloshy. It was a little wet.
It was wet, yeah.
That day, so
yeah,
it was a little slippery, but it was fine.
A lot of places we hunt, you know, we pack our elk or deer quite a ways.
Yeah.
And anymore, they have packs that are really nice. This is Everly stock. This is the one I bought at Sportsman's Warehouse. And the nice thing about this particular pack is that it has a spot for slinging your load.
Yeah.
So this is, you know, a lot of packs are made that way now. So and the frame's internal, and then you can just set your meat right on here in your game bag.
Just
put this right over it,
back
and
up.
then it has two big straps here to hold it tight to it, and that's all you have. There are a whole different, all kinds of brands. They make all kinds of styles, but these are really becoming more popular now. My brother has a Kuiu that has a little sling hauler. Badlands makes a pack like that. They all have some great new features that make packing meat a lot nicer.
Yeah.
And you had kind of a smaller pack.
Yeah, I actually used one of my really small hiking backpacks, just because I didn't have anything as nice as that, and I didn't have a bigger backpack. I mean, it worked okay, but it got heavy because it wasn't meant to pack a deer out.
No, and so these are really nice, and that's something you want to think about as you're getting into this. You know, is what's the kind of gear that you need to get.
And you want to make sure with your backpack that it's comfortable, sits on your hips nice, because you don't want all that weight like on your shoulders or anything like that. So you want to have something that fits you well, and something that maybe even the place where you buy it can help you fit it to your body to make sure it fits better. So
when you go to Sportsman's Warehouse, they'll help you with that. You can try on a bunch of packs and get it sized for you. The nice thing about these packs anymore is they're adjustable, and for you young women, you might be a little smaller. I'm a pretty big guy, and so a pack for me usually just fits pretty well. You know, or maybe it's a little small and I have to expand it. But when Michele borrows my packs, we have, you know,
cinch it down a lot.
She's quite a bit smaller than I am, so we have to find that, and that's what you want to do. You want to make sure you find a pack that fits well, because there's nothing worse than hanging around with a bad
a bad pack. Yeah, it just makes hiking a lot harder, and it's, I don't know, it's a little hard at the end when you're like, oh, I got this great deer, but my backpack's so heavy. So it's really important to make sure you have a really nice backpack. That's one thing that I always make sure I have, is a really nice pack.
One of the things we always do is we hunt with our packs all the time. And I know a lot of you rifle hunters out there hunt with a little fanny pack and then go back and get your frame pack, or you go back and get your meat hauling pack. And for me, you know, we like to just take off and not worry about how far we are from the truck or anything. So we take everything with us to be gone the whole day on our back. You can take your pack off to make your shot or whatever you need to do to make your
Usually
stock.
do that,
But it's with you. And then when the time comes, you just have all the stuff that you need. And that's, to me, that's the way to go.
Yeah, and you also don't want the animal being in the field for too long before you get back to it too. So if you're really far away, you don't want to have to hike all the way back out and then come all the way back in, and then the animal is starting to get warm, and you just want to clean it right away, take care of it right away.
You never know too. I had a bad experience once where a bunch of crows and magpies in the wintertime, I left a deer and went with my buddy for a couple hours, and I came back and literally they had eaten almost half of one of the hindquarters. They got inside the cavity, and I can't believe how many birds there were and how much meat they ate. So exactly.
Yeah.
I don't like leaving the meat very long and going back. So that's kind of the way we do it. But we got yours out. We had you loaded up.
Yeah, yes, a lot. I had.
You had the cape.
Yeah, the cape, the head, and two legs on me.
So she was kind of, whoa.
Yeah, standing up was challenging. That's why I invested in a really nice backpack, because that was hard at first, but it was okay once we got down a little further.
Yeah. it's a really great episode. I hope you watch it. I think you'd really like it. And I think, again, if you're a young woman thinking about getting into this, it might inspire you to get into the hunting and fishing. You know, Michele has done a great job and has learned a lot over the years, and it give you an opportunity to see, you know, you can do it too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and you learn so much about nature and everything around you that even if you don't get something that's basically worth it, to learn about how trees are and all these things and all the plants and all that kind of stuff. But
yeah, it's a lot of fun to be outside, and harvesting your own game is just sort of icing on the cake.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
that's what I think about it. So
yeah.
So watch the episode, A Buck Worth Waiting For. If you're a dad, you're a husband, you're a father, you know, just a grandfather, get your daughters out there. I think they'll really enjoy it. And don't be afraid to send us some notes here on YouTube. We'd be happy to answer any of your questions. Michele can answer them, or I can answer them. We'll be happy to have a little discussion to you if you've got questions or want to talk about the show that you watch or anything else about getting women in the outdoors.
Yeah. It's not as scary as you think. Some people, when I talk about all that kind of stuff to them, they're like, well, how can you go outside when you hike around, you don't know where you're going? Well, like you learn. You have a gun with you, so nothing's going to really hurt you, and you just learn and you go. What's the worst that can happen, really? You enjoy it. That's
pretty much.
Yeah.
And you know, you don't have to start out with big game hunting either. You know, you could start out like she did with duck hunting.
Yeah,
or
we did some bird hunting at first,
upland
and then
game, or just shooting ground squirrels in a farmer's field that he wants to get rid of them. I mean, all that kind of stuff just help you learn about guns and what it means to become a hunter and a good shot. And so I think that's all there really is to it. Give it a try. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
So a couple things before we go here. I wanted to make sure you follow us on Facebook. We have 2 Facebook pages. We have Harrod Outdoors LLC, which is where you'll hear all about the Northwest Outdoorsman TV show. And then our other show, Harrod's Cookhouse Field to Table, we have our own page for that. That's where we cook fish and wild game. We have a lot of recipes here on our YouTube channel, so you can check that out. But if you follow our Facebook page, and I post a lot of that stuff, or even recipes that we don't have. You can find additional recipes on our website. You can also follow us on Instagram. And Michele, you might mention you have one as well.
Yes, I have a hiking Instagram, Washington Unpaved.
Washington Unpaved.
It's all about hiking.
Yeah. So give that a follow. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. And tune in an upcoming episode. We'll be talking about some other great things in the outdoors.